Hi everyone, my name is Chessie. I take vintage and secondhand fabrics, upcycle them, and turn them into cute accessories. I just got a package in the mail from eBay. After my most recent launch, I decided to put together a little eBay fabric order. In today's video, I want to show you all of the vintage fabrics that I picked up from eBay, but I also want to talk about the big crisis that's happening in the crafting community, which is Joann's closing. But I wanted to address it in today's video because I know it is affecting a lot of people. A lot of businesses and a lot of crafters do rely on their local Joann's for their supplies. I don't live super close to a Joann's, but even if I did, it wouldn't affect me that much because I really prioritize purchasing my fabrics secondhand. I also really try and do that with my tools and my thread as well. Sometimes that really isn't realistic, but for that I do go to my local Michael's. I can only really speak on sewing, but in today's video I wanted to share with you all my favorite places to get secondhand fabrics, how I get secondhand fabrics, what I kind of look for, and how I look for them as well. My entire collection that you see behind me is secondhand. It is all vintage and secondhand fabrics. I think that the prints are also really unique compared to what is out there today, and it is also a textile that already exists. It does not need to go into new production to exist for you all. It already exists and it's already waiting for you to find it. But before I go into my favorite resources for sourcing secondhand fabrics and my tips for finding them as well, I want to show you all what I ended up getting from eBay. eBay is not my usual place to purchase fabric, but it is a really great resource for me when I'm looking for specific things or I want to replenish my fabric collection with more pieces that just bring inspiration. This fabric right here is a vintage food pantry fabric. I picked up this one because I really love food prints and I thought that this print would be really cute as a hot pad or a pot holder. Next is this orange floral print. I shockingly have a really difficult time finding orange printed fabric. I don't know what it is. I really lack orange fabric in my collection, but it is just really challenging to find cute orange fabrics. A lot of it is like Halloween themed, but this beautiful orange floral fabric will definitely bring a lot of inspiration into my collection. I got this all over cupcakes fabric. Again, I could see this being really cute as a pot holder or a hot pad. This print is so adorable. It's just an all over teddy bear print on a green background. I love little teddy bear prints like this. And I have some really nice like green filler patchwork fabric that I think would go super well with this teddy bear fabric. I am always on the hunt for cat themed fabric. Some cat fabric is really unrealistic, but this is like a really realistic print of just cat faces. I thought that this kind of like all over balloons print was really cute. I don't know what I would do with this one just yet. It could be really cute included in like a birthday banner or something. Another orange floral print. I actually got a few good cat ones. This cat one was super fun. It just like is a bunch of cats doing a bunch of different things. Like this cat is sewing. This fabric was printed in 07, so it's not quite vintage, but in 2 years it will be. For something to be vintage, it needs to be 20 years or older. I got this cat fabric, just a bunch of cats kind of lounging on a black background. I wasn't super sure about this one, but I loved the colors in it. I felt like I could do a lot of really fun combinations just because of how colorful this fabric was. Be a good opportunity for me to get like really creative with the shapes of my patchwork. Already getting inspired because I picked up this all over florals print, and wouldn't these be really cute together? Wow, this fruit fabric is so vibrant. I feel like fabric printed on a black base just makes everything pop so much, but this is super fun. I got another adorable bears fabric. This one has like gold shimmer throughout it, like gold details in the teddy bears outfits. The colors in these two even go really well together. Oh my god, these little teddy bears are really precious. This all over cows print on like a nice muted blue. This is just an all over rocking horse print. I feel like I could make some really cute pieces that are horse related. So I'm hoping to make something really cute and special with this. And then lastly is another Daisy Kingdom fabric for me to add into my collection. This one is called Lines and Lace, and it just looks like a bunch of like lace and doilies kind of in a patchwork print, and I just thought it was really, really beautiful. I don't know what I'll end up doing with this. Probably more of like a personal project because I like to collect Daisy Kingdom fabrics, but those are the fabrics I've gotten to play with. I will be pre-washing all of these as soon as I'm done filming this video. I wrote down all the places that I source my secondhand fabrics from and any tips that I have, so let's get into it. I feel like the most obvious place would be the thrift store, and I have gotten some really great fabrics from the thrift stores. I've had pretty good experiences with buying like big bulk bags of fabric from the thrift store, and I have a thrift store near me that rolls up fabric and prices it individually. In my experience with like Goodwill, I have only seen fabric be sold once, and it was a super small amount of it. Personally, and I have no evidence on this, I think that thrift stores probably do get donations of fabrics. I fear they don't take the time to go through it, and it probably ends up in the garbage. I feel like fabric is probably one of those things where it isn't really worth it for thrift stores to go through, and it's probably not an item that is bought a whole lot. Now, if my local Goodwill had a really nice secondhand fabric selection, I would be there weekly, but I just don't know that there's like enough of us that would do that. Hopefully one day though. Hopefully that definitely changes. I'm kind of hoping, honestly, with Joann's closing, that a lot of people kind of move more toward secondhand fabrics. There's so much of it out there. There's so many textiles in general, which brings me to my next point. If you are going to shop at a thrift store for fabric and your thrift store might not have a fabric section, you can check out their bed sheets and their blankets and their curtains. Always take the time and find a tag to see what the fiber makeup is. You can find some really nice 100% cotton bed sheets for like $5 to $10, and that's how many yards of fabric? Like several. One of the big complaints that I'm seeing in the discourse of secondhand fabric is that it's really hard to buy a lot of it at once, and I totally understand that being an issue for a lot of people. For me personally, I could do a lot with a really small amount of fabric. Between like the small accessory items that I make, like my wristlets, and also the patchworking that I do in my tote bags, I can do a lot with a small amount. So I'm never really in need of yards and yards of fabric at once, but I have definitely bought secondhand bed sheets to use as lining fabric for tote bags. I don't personally make clothing, but if I did, I think that would be a really good alternative. And then another great place to look would be just the clothing section. That is another conversation that I think needs to be put to rest. It will be all right if you buy a shirt from the thrift store and cut it up. There is so much information out there that is literally begging us to see how much textile waste there is on this planet and how many clothes get thrown away, how many clothes get shipped to other countries, how many clothes get thrown in the literal ocean. There is so much textile waste that comes from the US alone, but other Western countries as well. Nobody will go clothless. There is more clothing on this planet than we know what to do with. And I think it would be a really cool mission if you maybe only worked with secondhand clothing for your fabric use. You can make a lot of stuff out of a men's button down. Really think that is a conversation that needs to be put to rest. Nobody's running out of clothing. We could be buying up all the clothing at the local thrift store and they would still be getting more to restock with. My personal favorite way to purchase my vintage and secondhand fabrics is going to estate sales. Now, going to estate sales can sometimes be like an all weekend event. It can take up your whole morning and afternoon. It is a very time consuming way of living. I have had to tone it down a little bit, but there have been seasons of my life where my entire weekend feels like it is taken up by estate sales, but it is such a fun and thrilling experience to wait outside of a house full of who knows what and just be able to shop a person's entire life. It's a little sad, but it's also super thrilling, especially if that person had like the coolest stuff. And I have gotten so lucky with finding amazing fabrics and amazing sewing tools at estate sales. You have to understand that sometimes you get the opportunity to shop somebody's entire sewing collection. And I think that is a little bit sad, but also imagine how much joy that person would feel knowing that their collection went to somebody who really loves the craft that they loved so much. Maybe nobody in their family picked up sewing and that's why their entire collection was left behind. But you like sewing and you're gonna enjoy the heck out of her stuff. I find and track all of my local estate sales through estatesale.net. I use the app. You just plug in your zip code and you can see all of the sales that are in your area. You can set your mileage to be whatever you want. I think it's like up to 100 miles or something. Yes, I have traveled very far for estate sales before. Not for fabric, but I wouldn't not do that. But that is an amazing way to get secondhand tools. There's a lot of thread at estate sales. Sometimes I even find machine needles, which is like an awesome find. And I don't know about anybody else's experience, but I always find these vintage needles to be way stronger than the new ones that are sold today. It almost feels like a privileged experience to be able to shop somebody's sewing collection. I wouldn't classify myself so much as a beginner at this point, but there's still a lot for me to learn, and I feel like I get to learn a lot from the items that somebody kept in their collection. I feel like it's all like a learning experience too. Estate sales are just an experience, and if you have the time to go to one, I highly recommend it. My next source for secondhand fabrics is Facebook. I have gotten lucky on Facebook Marketplace, but also there are a lot of Facebook fabric groups. People are selling their fabrics from their personal collection. Sometimes people are looking to trade with you. I did that a lot in the beginning, but I don't do it so much anymore. I just honestly find that a lot of the groups are really oversaturated, and like anything that I want gets like bought up in minutes. I don't really bother taking a look anymore, but I will regularly look on Facebook Marketplace. That's actually how my fabric collection started. I got my sewing machine and I was so ready to sew, and then I'm like, wait, I need fabric to use. I knew from the beginning I didn't want to create waste by getting into this hobby, so I knew that I wanted to work with secondhand fabrics. And I got on Facebook Marketplace to see kind of what my options were. And there was somebody selling their 92-year-old mother's fabric collection in 4 garbage bags, and I bought it for 40 bucks. And that is how I started with my fabric collection. It had a lot of great stuff in it. It had a lot of fabrics that maybe aren't really my style, but it still got me started, and Facebook Marketplace was a great resource for secondhand fabric. So definitely check your local Facebook Marketplace and also join some fabric groups on Facebook as well. My next resource for buying secondhand fabrics is eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari. These resources work really well for when I am looking for something very specific. I will just plug into eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, exactly what I'm looking for. Usually it's vintage fruit prints, and a great deal of stuff come up, especially on eBay, but don't discredit Poshmark and Mercari, even Depop. Don't discredit any of the reseller apps and websites, because you never know what anybody is selling. It is a great opportunity to get secondhand fabrics and discounted fabrics. I do like to haggle, so if you're selling something for $10, I will ask if you'll take 7. I know a lot of people in the Joann's closing conversation are also recommending people go to their local fabric stores, their local quilting stores. I also know that the other side of that conversation is saying it's really expensive. Like, some of these local mom and pop shops, they can be really expensive. But I do think that this is a good opportunity to kind of do some research into what is local for you. And in Charlotte, we are really lucky to have a local secondhand craft store. It is Upcycle Arts. It's in East Charlotte, and I love this store so much. Not only do they sell a variety of fabrics, thread, notions like buttons, lace, trim, tassels. They sell so much stuff. They also sell things for painting and clay making and paper crafts like scrapbooking, jewelry making materials. Upcycle Arts in Charlotte, I just cannot say enough good things about them. I know that I'm really lucky to have that resource, and I know a lot of people do not have that resource, but it's probably a good time for you to do some research. Maybe there's one that's at least like driving distance from you, and you can make a little afternoon out of it with a crafting pal, you know? My last little tip and suggestion is to use your own clothing, use your own textiles. You might have bedding that is kind of on its way out, or clothing that doesn't fit right anymore. Cut that clothing up and cut those bed sheets up. One of the funny things that I was seeing in the Joann's closing conversation where somebody had suggested bed sheets was that they were saying that like bed sheets at Goodwill are always stained. Maybe they are. We can wash things, like we have washers and dryers. If you don't, a laundromat would. We can wash these things, and like we can cut around the stained parts. We don't have to use the stained parts. But I think it's a really important message to make your clothing and your own textiles in your own home your responsibility. There's so much information out there right now that is literally telling us that the items that we are donating are most likely going into the landfill. Maybe not even going to the landfill in this country, which is so wrong on so many levels. But I think that this is an opportunity to make your textiles your responsibility. Don't see everything as disposable. If you have a bag of clothing in your closet right now that you've been sitting on, or in your car more likely that you've been sitting on, planning on bringing it to Goodwill, pull that bag out of your car or your closet and look through it and see if there's anything that you can repurpose in there. I think patchworking is not only beautiful, but it probably stems from a practice of mending things and piecing things together, cutting things out that have been stained or have holes in them, and patching pieces together to make something whole again. I really do feel for the people who are affected by Joann's closing, but I just wanted to come on here and let you know that there are other options, there are other resources that you can check out, and I just think that this is an opportunity for people to get really creative. I've built my whole business on upcycling secondhand fabrics, and a villain-like business owner might think that it's silly of me to be sharing my tips and resources with you all, but nothing would make me more happier than to hear more people are thrifting and sourcing secondhand fabrics. We just have so much of it. We could stop production today and probably wouldn't feel it. Leave me a comment down below about your thoughts about Joann's closing. I'd love to know if you have opinions about how this is going to affect the crafting community, and maybe any tips that you have as well for sourcing vintage and secondhand fabrics. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about my experience sourcing secondhand fabrics. But that is going to be it from me today. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you aren't already subscribed, definitely go ahead and do so, and hopefully I will see you next time.